Newbold the sauce, please. Or if there's no more, please share. The next song is one of my favorites, and it's number 8. And one of the reasons why I think it's my favorite is that I learned it when I was in Bournemouth, and they were very good to me down there. And the text is all heavy.
All right, lovely. Okay, well, you're going to get one. It's called a children's story, okay? Okay, well, this story is about a young boy. Let's find a name for him. What shall we call him? Robert. Okay, we'll call him Robert. Well, let's call him Bob for short, okay? Now, Bob went past a local toy shop, and he saw a special game, a special computer game that he wanted. And he said to his mom, you know, Mom, can I have this computer game? And she said, well, you have to be good for a whole year. And he said, yeah, I can be good for a whole year. And then he thought about it again. He said, well, okay, could I be good for a week? And then she said, well, okay. And then he thought about it again. He said, can I be good for a day? And she said, well, all right, you're good for a day, then you can get it. So he was really, really good for a day. He did, you know, he cleaned his teeth, he washed behind his ears, he did all the good things that children should do. And at the end of the day, his mom pulled out this lovely game. Now, don't try this at home, children. I'm not saying if you clean your teeth and clean behind your ears, you'll get a good game, but okay. And so his mom gave him this really expensive game, all right? Now, he was playing with it, and it was. I mean, this doesn't look very expensive. I know that there are more trendy ones, Nintendos and things, but this is all I could afford. Okay, so this was, and he was playing with it. And he really enjoyed it. Lovely, really nice game. And he was walking in the park one day, and who wants to be Bob for me? Okay, you hold on to that. All right, so you're Bob. Remember, who's this? Bob. All right, good. So Bob was playing with it in the park, and. Okay. And as he walked in the park, he saw another friend. Let's call that friend Brenda. Who wants to be Brenda? Okay, well, boys can't be Brenda, so let's try. Any girls want to just be Brenda? All right. You want to try this for me? Very good. So he saw, Bob saw Brenda, and Brenda had a ball, a special ball. Now this ball was one that you bounced on the ground and it went up into the air, into the sky. Look, into the clouds. Stayed in there and it came back down. And so when Bob saw Brenda's ball, she said, well, wow! He said, wow, I've never seen a ball like that. I tell you what, let's swap. And so Bob swapped his game, which his mother had bought, with Brenda for her ball. So swap. All right, good, excellent. Now, they went along, and Bob had this great ball, and he was bouncing it, and he would go into the air, into the sky, into the clouds, come back down. And he was enjoying playing with it for a little while. But then he saw another friend. And this other friend had this really trendy graduate teddy bear. We'll call this bear Bill, all right? So Billy, right? Who wants to be Billy? Okay, now boys and girls can be Billy, all right? So you hold on to that, all right? And so Bob said, well, that is a really trendy graduate teddy bear. I tell you what, let's swap. And so Billy swapped with Bob, all right? Good. Now, Bob had this trendy graduate teddy bear, and he was going to show it off to all his friends. But then, as he walked, he saw someone else with a special balloon. All right, what should we call this? So what have we got so far? We've got Bob, we've got Brenda, we've got Billy, and let's have another lady. You want to hold that for us? Okay, and we'll call you Belinda, shall we? All right, just for the purpose of the story. All right, and so Bob saw Belinda, and he said, "Oh dear, you see, this is what happens when you start giving out things in children's stories." All right. And so Belinda was walking with her balloon, and as she walked along, the balloon would kind of lift her off the ground, and she would kind of float in the air. It was even bigger than that balloon, and she would float. And so Bob said, "What did he say?" He said, "Wow! I've never seen a balloon like that." And so he said, "Well, I tell you what, I'll swap." And so Bob swapped with Belinda. Okay. Now Bob was just walking around. Hold it steady, Bob. Bob was just walking around, enjoying the trees and the birds and everything, and he was just enjoying himself. And then he came really close to a branch, and all of a sudden, and there was no balloon anymore. All he had was a little piece, and so he said, "Oh no, what am I going to do?" And so he said, "Well, I know, I'll just go back to Belinda, and I'll just swap it back with her." And so he went to Belinda, and he says, "Well, you know that teddy bear that I swapped, that trendy graduate teddy bear, will you swap it back?" And guess what she said? She said, "What? No." And so he said, "Well, okay, I know what I'll do. I'll go to Billy. And Billy, I gave him that ball, and I'm sure he'll swap it back." And so he went to Billy and he said, "Billy, will you swap back with me?" And Billy said, "What? No." And so he said, "I know. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just go back to Brenda, right? And it'll solve all the problems because Brenda has my game." And so he went back to Brenda with the bit of the balloon that he had left, and he said, "Brenda, will you swap back my game?" And guess what Brenda said, children? She said what? No way, she said. Papa began to cry, and he was so upset. He went back home, and he didn't even know what to tell his mom. But after a while, he was crying so much, his mom said, "What's the matter?" He said, "Well, you know, I had the game, and I swapped it with Brenda and Belinda. I swapped it with her, and I think I had the balloon. He went up, and I went back with me. And now I haven't got anything left but this piece of balloon." Wasn't that sad? Very sad. Now, you know, children, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because, well, two reasons. The first reason is that your parents, those who look after you, your grandparents, your parents, they buy you things and they look after you. But you know, sometimes as children, we're not very thankful, are we? Sometimes we're always wanting something else, or someone else has, or we're always wanting new trainers or new clothes, and sometimes we cry, and sometimes we get a little miserable when we don't have all the things that we want. But you know, kids, we should be really, really thankful today. Because this morning when we got up, we had food to eat, we had clothes to wear, we had shoes to put on our feet, we probably came in a nice car to come to church today, and you know there are some kids in the world who don't have the things that we have. So we should be thankful. What do you think, yeah? And you know, the second thing is, the problem with Bob was that he didn't value the thing that his mom had bought for him. He didn't treasure it. Now, you know, when I was a little boy, and I used to come to church, and I used to think church was so boring. And I didn't want to come. I wanted to stay at home and watch This Was and all the children's programs. But you know, as I came to church week after week, Sabbath after Sabbath, I began to realize that it was very valuable. And now I wouldn't swap it for anything in the world. So when you think about, whenever you see a balloon, remember the story. Remember to be thankful, and remember that Jesus loves you, and that's the most precious thing in all the world. All right, children, we're going to pray now. Let's close our eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning for waking us up and helping us to come to church today. We pray that you'll help us to be thankful and to be grateful, and also to get to know you and to love you more and more each day. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much. You can go back to your seats now.
planted the seed, and Apollos watered it, but God is the one who made it grow. So the one who plants is not important, and the one who waters is not important. Only God, who makes things grow, is important. The one who plants and the one who waters have the same purpose, and each will be rewarded for his own work. We are God's workers, working together. You are like God's farm, God's house.
The sun is rising higher and the sky becoming brighter. Two shadows of the sea slowly flow. Another long night without sleeping, another long day full of weeping, another poor catch for the man in the boat. On his forehead carved with worries, with too many tragic stories, another wrinkle as I look down on this day. His grief is far from being ended, how to come home empty-handed. What will his hungry little children say? And then he starts to think about it, how to make it free, how to take his life and hide it from this misery. Misery that almost blinded and closed his eyes to see. Now he sees and understands he needs to rest his weary hands. While he was deeply so seeking, he heard a stranger speaking. Lift your anchor and try again this very day. Although the purpose looked so deep, the fisherman believed him. He stood up, rolled up his sleeves, and sailed away. Despite the gloomy expectation, the fishes changed their destination. Instead of flying, they slid right into the net. While he was worried how this could be, the stranger told him stranger can be set free. We can see better lanes enriching with his wounded hands.
I should say, good morning, graduates, class of 2001. You see, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters. So we've got to sort of go out of the way and start talking a little bit. And that's more important in terms of what we will learn. Now, I see some friends of mine, and I must say hello to them. I see Alba up on the top and Michael, and I see my friend Floyd from Trinidad. That's very good. And lots of friends who we have met as we have traveled from place to place. But this morning, the hour's address is for the graduates because this is their weekend, and I'm so happy and privileged, and I consider it an honor to be able to address this graduation group on your penultimate service. That really, in my mind, marks the end of one phase of your life and the beginning of another. It's what I choose to call the transition zone. The transition zone. It's the interval between what is gone and what is yet to come. Or what I would say is the slipstream between what has been and what is still to appear. Or maybe I'll call it the vacuum between yesterday and tomorrow. But it's a historic moment in your life, a historic time, a historic period, when the next few steps that you will take will determine how you live and ultimately your final destiny. I was intrigued by the selection of the theme that the pastor shared with me for this year's graduation. One small step, one giant leap. And so I thought I would take a few moments to explore my interpretation of this theme this morning. When I thought of the idea of one small step, I thought of the concept of a new beginning. Because really, you have only just begun. You know, when I was in school and I was a teenager, I thought I was pretty bright. Somebody needs to turn the mic down a little bit for me. It's a little too loud. I thought I was bright as a teenager, you know. And then thank you very much. And then I went across and I did my advanced levels, and I thought maybe I wasn't so bright after all. And then I went and I did my degree, and then I realized I'm really not at all very bright. And now that I've done multiple degrees, I've come to the conclusion that I'm absolutely ignorant. Because really, you've only just begun, and there's a world of attainment, there's a world of information, there's a world of knowledge that lies up there. I suppose to some degree we are like children, we're like children just now learning how to walk. You know what I mean? And in that context, therefore, you are going to make some mistakes. You're going to slip, and some people are going to fall. You're going to have some success, and you're going to have some failures. I personally don't believe there's any such thing as a failure. That's my interpretation. I think there are undesired outcomes, undesired results. But I wouldn't call it a failure. In other words, if you were to sit back and analyze the steps that you took to result in the particular outcome you have, then you can change so-called failure into success. Whatever it is, even if you were considering things as failure or considering experience as a failure, my advice is that you shouldn't make failure a club. Let's all get together and cry and mope and win and wage. That's making failure a club. No. I say make failure a school. Learn from it. But whatever it is, it's the beginning of a new time, a new phase, a new period. But I'm hoping for you it's the beginning of a new way of thinking. And to be honest with you, that there are many people who have left the graduating halls of schools and have become exemplary. They have become historic figures. As we look around today, we are also facing that historic moment. Because in my mind, mankind is currently undertaking some of its greatest movements in recorded history. Throughout the 1,000 years of of the recorded process, our ancestors have looked up into the night sky and have thought to themselves, what makes the world go round? You know, one time they used to believe that the sun moved around the earth. Did you know that? They thought the sun moved around the earth, the moon and the stars. And for thousands of years, the conclusion was that the earth was the center of the universe. And it used to be thought that the stars were attached to crystal shells in the heavens. But then suddenly everything changed, and it changed when a man called Galilei started his investigations. He was born in 1654, and at that time the sun used to circle around the earth. After he died, it was the other way around. The earth now circled around the sun. Of course, it took many more years before the planets got a chance to change their course. Not during his lifetime. But what had changed was the way mankind started to think, how they started to learn about the universe. The scientific discoveries of Galileo Galilei terminated the medieval age of science and inaugurated what we now call today as modern science. However, what was groundbreaking was not immediately welcome, and this is the story I want to tell. What Galilei had discovered was not accepted. He did not receive a standing ovation, or neither was he considered to be the person most likely to succeed in life. He faced lifelong opposition by his colleagues, and the church even banished him for heresy. Now, 400 years later, the American spacecraft Voyager has crossed the entire solar system. Everything Galileo had discovered has now been confirmed. And before the Voyager left our solar system to move into the darkness of the universe, it turned around and peeked for one last time and provided us with a fascinating view of our solar system and of the planet Earth. For the first time, a picture was taken and provided us with a unique look at ourselves and mankind's role in this universe. What did it discover? The planet Earth is only a small dot. New perceptions are, of course, not just confined to the universe, but they also are relevant in the area of medicine, which is where my field is, because they directly affect millions of lives. Throughout the ages and in history, many epidemics have come. The plague, we have heard about cholera, smallpox, just to mention a few. As recently as 400 years ago, a third of the population of Europe died from epidemics. The tragedy is that we knew what the cause of the epidemic was. Science had recorded it. They knew what it was. Then everything changed 100 years ago. A French chemist called Louis Pasteur discovered that infections were not a curse, but they were caused by bacteria and other microorganisms. Pasteur's discovery paved the way for the development of vaccines and antibiotics. But here's the question again. Was his discovery immediately welcome? Of course, the answer is no. His colleagues and the medical fraternity attacked Pasteur on the grounds that he was a chemist and not a physician. Similarly, when cowpox vaccine was first used to prevent the deadly smallpox infection, this treatment was openly ridiculed. 19th century's caricature describes, draws small cows and growing out of the bodies of people who had just received the vaccine with its life-saving power. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said something interesting. He said, new thoughts and new truths go through three stages. First, they are ridiculed. Next, they are violently opposed. Finally, they are accepted as being self-evident. So that's small steps that can make a big difference. But what about the giant leap? What about the giant leap? The transition into the big, new, untried world. I want to say to us that now that you have gone and gotten your papers and certificates, you are now going to move out of the care and the protection of the staff and the teachers and the friends that embraced you at this college. That can be an exhilarating and exciting feeling, a feeling of freedom. But for some people, this can be threatening. It depends largely on your point of view. Whatever your point of view is, my only advice is you have to be very careful, because the value system is very different in the world than the value system you may have learned here. Point number two. The small steps that we take today are the beginning of a journey. Would you say amen? The beginning of a journey. And there are therefore two outcomes, two choices, two roads. Life, health, and prosperity is one. Or on the other hand, the road that leads to destruction and despair. I want to share with you a few stories that might illustrate my point. I want to tell you about the story of a young man who was very good looking, I suppose. The lady seemed to be attracted to him. He had a good education, got his degrees from the best universities at the time. He came from a good and a wealthy family, good background. He loved his parents. He was working with his family business, and they were doing very well. He was the envy of his friend. He had nice homes and all paid for, no mortgage debt. He even had a Christian education, and so we would class him today as a standard upper class family. Went regularly to church. But one day he decided that he had had enough of the hard work at his family business. Thought to himself he would go and explore the world, you know. As we would say today, he wanted to do his own thing. But guess what's the problem? If you're going to explore the world, you need some
money.
Money. So he goes to his father and he says to him, look, I need some money in order to go and sort the world out. I've worked hard enough here, you know, business is doing well. I think it's about time I got my share. So he goes and asks for his bit of the family's estate and property value. In fact, from what I can understand from the story, he didn't wait for his father to die and then he could go and prove the will. He thought he would have his share immediately. Well, I'm told that desperately his father tried to persuade him, saying to him that, you know, thought something wasn't a good idea, not the right time to leave home yet. He did a little more education, a little more training, give himself a little more time. But the boy was adamant. He insisted, no, he needs to go now. Because you see, he thought the world was passing him by real fast, you know. He was on the merry-go-round, going round and around, and everybody was waving him as he moved from point to point. Let's pick up the story in Luke chapter 15. Let's pick up the story in Luke chapter 15. And let's go to verse 11. Read the story of that young man who thought it was time to move on. Now in verse 11 of chapter 15, the story tells us that this rich young man, he had two sons. The youngest son told his father, I want to share, I'm reading from the New Living Translation, I want to share my share of the estate now, instead of waiting until you die. Didn't want to prove the will, wanted it now. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, the younger son packed all his belongings, took a trip to a distant land. And there he did what? Wasted his money on wild living, the New Living Translation says. Twisted. Didn't invest his money. He wasted his money. Why? He had no financial sense. Now, you know, there's something I've observed, and it's a fault that I have. I have multiple degrees. One thing the university never taught me is financial business, which is not the same as business management. You know, there's a big difference between business management and making money. Do you agree with that? I see a lot of people who have no education but are wealthy beyond average. Why? Because they have business. Now some of them are crooks as well. Don't get me wrong. So I'm not trying to tell you that there's no crookedness. But I've also come to realize, and I work in a situation in the medical professions, and these are people who are well trained with lots of degrees, and they're struggling to pay their mortgage at the end of the year. Why? They have never learned financial matters. So this boy never learned that either. So he didn't invest his money, he didn't get any financial education, had a good degree, but he didn't know how to value and spend his money. So the record tells us that his money ran out, and with his money ran out, all his girlfriends ran out too. And all his friends and colleagues who were by him, his barman didn't support him anymore with the drinks. So he finds himself in a desperate state. He's now in a pigsty feeding the animals. And he is so hungry, he's considering that he would eat the pig food as well, which is a pretty desperate state for anybody to be in, that you consider eating pig food as well. So what does he do? That's an interesting point. He had made a small step, yeah? He made a small step when he left his father's house, When he opened the door, he made a small step. And before he knew it, he found that he had made a giant leap into poverty, despair, and desperation. But the remainder of the story is encouraging because at least it illustrates the point that if we were simply to change the direction of our steps, we could change the direction of our outcome. For the story tells us that he thought to himself, well, I'm having a hard time here, and in my father's house even my servants are treated better than that, therefore I will turn around and go back home. He changed the course of his steps, and he therefore changed the course of his outcome. So point number one is, very clearly, that the steps you take can make a big difference. The steps you take now can make a big difference to the leap you will take in the future. I'll give you another story, the story of Moses. Moses was educated in Egypt, attended some of the finest schools and universities money could buy. After all, he was the son of the Pharaoh's daughter. Money was not an object. He didn't need to fork out a loan or go for a grant, you know. He didn't have to work during the summer breaks to pay for school education. But despite all his education, what he had not learned was how to control his temper and how to lean on God. You see, he had been taught and trained to rely upon the arm of flesh for his deliverance, his wisdom, his education, and if reasoning and psychology didn't work, then he thought, well, I'll attain it by the arm of flesh, by force. And you know, today, beloved, some of us could find ourselves in Moses' situation, sitting in his own seat, because we've all been well trained with degrees and diplomas. And you think, some of us may be tempted to think, well, I'll go out and win it by my wit and achieve by my wisdom and my knowledge. And if that doesn't work, I think I'll try a little thing now and then see if I can get myself in anyhow. And I want to say to us, beloved, without any doubt or fear in my mind, that if you think that will get us success, then we're making a mistake. The arm of flesh will fail. Moses found that quickly enough. He had to flee Egypt, the record tells us, and instead of commanding a big army and running a successful business, he found himself instead on the plains of Midian seeking employment from a farmer called Jethro. Learning to tend sheep, he had to go to a small business enterprise. You see, God had to teach him that before you could get big success, you had to learn in life's journey how to manage small things. Small steps first, giant leap later. And Moses was 40 years old. I find the story interesting when he left Egypt, but yet the record tells us that when he was 80 years of age, God called him into active service and employment. Isn't that interesting? I suppose that would be the time when Moses was just about to thinking he'd retire and get his government pension. 80 years old, God calls Moses. And I just want to say to us, beloved, there is no time when you can be released from God's service. You're released from God's service when God says it's time to go. So Moses was 80 years old and about to enter the greatest arena in his career. The greatest and most powerful potentate and leader. He was about to challenge a giant leap. From a small-time farmer to challenge the greatest potentate, the earth's giant leap. And if you think Moses accepted his call eagerly, I think you have another thought coming. He bellyached and resisted and he came to the point, God himself got annoyed. He said to Moses, look, you've got to stop this. I'm telling you that's what I want you to do. It's interesting how God started his experience, how God called Moses into his giant leap experience. Do you remember the story? He was there tending to the sheep and the Bible says that his eyes drifted and he saw a strange thing. What? He saw a bush that was burning but not consumed. And he said to himself, I will turn aside to see this great sight. Beloved, listen to me. When unusual things start happening all around you, sometimes it is the beginning of a giant leap that God is about to set you in place. Unusual events started to happen around Moses. It was the beginning of a call to his giant leap. Great tasks just lay ahead. And then when God confronted Moses and said, this is what I want you to do to set my people free, Moses started to say, but they won't even believe me anymore. I thought about my myself, how was God going to get around this problem? And I found an interesting experience. God turned to Moses and said, what? What is that in thy hand? Isn't that interesting? Just about to call him to his giant leap. Moses is resisting, and God is saying, no, you have to go. He says, I don't think they believe me. They won't believe my mission. God says to him, what it is are you holding in your hand? Moses said, what? I have a rod. So God says to Moses, cast it down to the earth. And the rod of Moses becomes the rod of God. So I say to us this morning, beloved, what is that in your hand? A degree? A diploma? I am saying, why don't you cast it down to the earth too? Give it to God. And let that diploma become the diploma for God. And it might result not only in your own deliverance, but the deliverance of God's people. Yeah. So what do you have in your hand? What do you have in your hand? My third story, to illustrate the point of small steps giving you giant leaps, is the story of the disciples found in Luke chapter 5. Turn with me to Luke chapter 5 very quickly, because there is this message there that I want to share with you. It tells me that the disciples, Simon Peter, as you know, they were all fishermen. They were fishing all night long, throwing their nets out, trying to gather fish. Of course, the best time to fish is during the night season, because that's when the fishes come out. It's dark and they're under the cover and they think they can go and feed. They cannot be seen, though they travel unhindered. And so Simon and his friends were fishing all night long, and don't care how hard they tried, they would gather what? They gathered nothing. Nothing at all. In the early morning hours now, after a hard day's labor, and trying everything they knew, all the techniques that they've learned as fishermen, Jesus meets them. The Bible says Jesus went into the boat. Isn't that interesting? Jesus went into the boat. You find that story in Luke 5, and it starts in verse 2. He noticed 2 empty boats at the water edge, where the fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it out onto the water. So he sat in the boat and taught the crowds from there. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, now go where it is deeper. Let down your nets, you will catch many fish. Now, I don't know if you get the story here. These are well-trained fishermen. And so they start to remonstrate with the Lord, you know. And Peter starts to say, listen to me. We have done this thing all night. I'm tired. I want to go home, take a break. It's been a long night at work. They didn't even believe what God was saying, what Jesus was saying to them. They started to argue with him. It's a bad strategy. That doesn't go to work. But what does Jesus say? Jesus says, lower down your nets and you will catch fish. So Simon doesn't believe it. His word says that to me. Master Simon replied, we would have worked hard all night long and didn't catch a thing. But if you say it, then we will try again. And so the record tells us that Simon threw out the net, and what did they catch? They caught so many fish that they had to ask other fishing boats to help them. And even when they put the fish into the boat, it began to sink. What was the message? What was the difference between the success that Simon Peter and his fisherman friend had from the night before to the morning after? The difference was Jesus came in the boat. Jesus came in the boat. And I want to say to us, beloved, this morning, that you can have all your degrees, and you can have all your diplomas, and you can have all your successes, and have all your connections. You will still achieve no success unless Jesus comes in the boat. That's the message. That's the message. So let me now share in a few minutes, and finish up with this in a few minutes. Can you give me 10 minutes more? Yeah. Is that all right? You won't put me out before my time. 10 minutes more. Let me share my experience. Let me share my experience. I was born into a very simple home. I don't like to say poor. That would not be true. It wouldn't be poor. I would call it simple. Humble house, humble dwelling, humble home. And midway when I was about 9 or 10, my father left. So now my mother was bringing us up alone. You get my drift? Everybody getting my drift? And of course, one mother trying to bring up 4 children, 3 children is a challenge in itself. Even in 25 years ago, it was a challenge. I walked to school 4 miles every day. one way was 4 miles, and you walk back 4 miles the other way. Borrow books from the library because I couldn't buy them. Hear my drift? You see, some people look and say, they'll just figure out 8 or 9 degrees, can't remember which one now. Must have been all easy. Must have been all easy. No, it wasn't. Now here's the interesting thing, did very well in my school, got my O-levels and went on to my GCSE A-levels and got it very well, thought, well, I need to go to university. What's the problem? No money. So for 2 years I have to work to get money. Did all right, you know. I've done everything under the sun, believe me. Worked as a mechanic. I used to fix pipes on the roadside. You name it, I've done it. So I saved a little bit of money and thought, fine, you know, between my mother and myself, we'll be all right to get through. The day I'm about to go to university, they employed me, the place where my mother was working, went flat to the ground. Get the challenge? I know I don't have enough money to go to school. I just have enough to keep me going. You know what I did for my first year of school? I used to sleep on a bench. I used to sleep on a bench outside the university. What we used to do, there was this, you know, the familiar campus site like this. They'd have the auditorium, which was a sort of stepped auditorium. And then they would have these halls of residence. So what I would do is I would sleep on a bench, and early in the morning, 6 o'clock, I would get up and go into the halls of residence and have a shower. You know? Then I'd have biscuit and milk. That was my breakfast. Luckily for me, at the time, I was an Adventist already. I became an Adventist at 17. That was the best thing that would ever happen to me, to be honest. The best thing that happened to me. So just around that time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, the place where she used to work for the conference office. And the conference office moves up right opposite to the university. Isn't God working for us sometimes? Right opposite. So my girlfriend, who is now my wife, would bring me lunch and food. So I'd go in the morning and I'd collect my lunch, and then I'd run back to school, you know. And then I'd go in the night and sleep. You know many times policemen came and splashed light in my eyes. You're not supposed to be sleeping on a bench. And I'm sleeping on a bench in the university. Why? Need to get my education. But not only was I doing that, in the midst of that I was running 5 to 7 Bible studies a week. Was the Sabbath school leader and the AY leader. And Sunday to Friday, and on Friday night we used to have an Adventist group. So I got all the Adventists together, all the Adventists from all the countries. We formed this university group. So Friday night, every Friday night, a meeting. I remember, I was so busy at that time, a friend of mine who was not an Adventist, a Christian, he saw me come down, he said, you know something, Tony? You're not going to pass your exams. Not going to pass. In the course I did, my first degree, I did 300 university exams. 300 university exams. It was just so busy. I did exams twice a year, twice a term, and I had 6 courses a term to do. 300 university exams I did. And he said, you're never going to pass this. It's too much. Doing 5 to 7 Bible studies, doing all this, doing all the Bible work and so on. That year I got 6 A's and a B. You understand where I'm coming from? It has nothing to do with me. I don't give praise to myself. I'm not that bright. Honestly, I'm not that bright. I'm really not that bright. But the Lord is able to deliver those who trust in Him. Able to do it. I graduated with the highest number of honors ever in a university. Highest ever number of honors. And you think that was good enough? I'll tell you a story very quickly. I'm watching my time because, you know, I promised to get you out, and I will. Pastor told me, warned me, by the way. Told me, you know, we have time, we're going to keep. But let me tell you my story. After I did my first degree, and I went to teach at the university, I trained as a soil chemist. And 2 years after my training as a soil chemist, while I was teaching at the university, the Lord said to me, it's time for you to do medicine. I can't explain that to you, the experience would take too long. Time for you to do medicine. So I said to the Lord, well, that sounds pretty good, but, you know, how am I going to do this? So I went to the university, the administration, and I said, I would like to get a form for medicine. The lady said, fine, here it is, but it has to be in by tomorrow. No, it has to be in 2 days' time. That was 2 days' time in Jamaica. No way it could get, I was from Trinidad, there's no way it could get to Jamaica in 2 days' time. Impossible. Couldn't be done. What do you think I did? Filled out the form, got all the certificates, put it in my pocket, and walked away. I said, Lord, if you want me to do medicine, you have to get it to Jamaica somehow. By it was going to be the next day. While I'm going home that afternoon, I see a friend of mine who's from Jamaica. He's shopping. I said, what are you doing, friend? He says, well, I'm about to go home. My grandfather is unwell. Got to go back to Jamaica today. So I said to him, look, well, here's my phone. So I took it out of my pocket and I handed it to him. I said, this has got to go to university tomorrow morning. He said, that's all right, I'm passing in the university first. 3 months later, I get an answer, a form saying that we will accept it to go to university. Isn't that something else? See how the law works? Like here, what do you think is the problem?
Money.
I have no money. I've been working those few years, but I have no money. Paying my bills, you see, because I had to pay back the bills for the first degree. I have no money. So what do? I sell everything I have in my house. Jack and my wife and I were married by then. We sold everything I have in my house. Came up to $1,200. That's all the money I had. Put it in a check. And of course, I couldn't cash the check. I had $50 in my pocket. Went onto the plane. I went to Chile with $50 in my pocket. Keep saying £50 or $50 in those days. No, not pounds. You understand what I'm saying? $50 in my pocket. Go to the university now, and I came. I said, look, I need an apartment. Give it a story. I need an apartment to live. So the Lord will deliver his people. Tell him, I need somewhere to stay. The lady said to me, you've come too late. All the places have been taken. Isn't that interesting? My wife is at home. I have nowhere to live. They put me up in a bed, what looked like accommodation flats. They say you have 5 days and then you have to come out. 5 days. And I have to find a place. So I went back home to my apartment. I said, Lord, you told me to come up here. I did what you said to do. I have $50 in my pockets. I have 5 days before I travel. What am I supposed to do? You know what the Lord said to me? Go back and ask a second time. It's hard for me to describe this. The Lord said, go back and ask a second time. So I went back to the lady. She was in a meeting. I stayed another hour waiting and so I'm so sorry, I came here yesterday and you said there was no places and so on. But I'm impressed to tell you, could you please check again? The lady said, I've checked already, there's none there. I said, no, but I'm impressed to ask you, could you check again? The lady flips through a little card. One card shows up. I didn't see this. And she said, all right, why don't you go and check this place out, see if they can give you accommodation. So, of course, I grabbed the card and I'm running down and found out to this lady now, it's off the campus. So the lady, look at the place, little flat, not too bad and so on. $600 a month, and $600 in advance. So how much money do you have to fork out? Get my drift? I have to fork out $1,200 to pay this lady to get the flat. How much money do I have?
$50.
Minus 10 because I paid for 2 days of the year. So what do I do? So I turned to the lady. I said, lady, look, this is the problem. I'm a Christian. And this is my problem. I will pay you the money as soon as I get it. The lady looked at me for about 5 minutes without saying a word. She just looked at me, of course I'm praying. She looked at me, just looked at 5 minutes. Couldn't believe what I was saying. Then she turned to me and says, I'm impressed to trust you. Here are the keys.
Amen.
There's 3 of them.
Amen.
God has a way of working. God has a way of working. So, and I can give you a story, I don't have time, but I have another one, but I want to finish it. Because I can tell you how I came to England. That's an amazing story. That's what I went past and I'll do it next time. Tell you the amazing story of how God works miracle after miracle after miracle to see his people. See his people. And I'm not unique. I don't want to give the impression I'm more unique or special than anybody else. I'm really not special. It's just that God has done some good things for me. And the Bible says we overcame them by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. I want to say God is real. Amen?
Amen.
Do for us what we will do. What we need to do for us is share his power. Now, let me conclude by suggesting a few questions that you must ask yourself and give you a few words of advice. Few words of advice. As you've come to this crossroad in your life, because it is a crossroad. Number 1, questions you must ask. What do I really want to do with my life? That's the question you must ask. That's what we call long-term planning, your long-term goal. What do I really want to do with my life? That's number 1. Number 2, I have to spend the next 5 years, or that's your goal. The long-term is ultimately going to become. The intermediate 5 years. So the question you need to ask, you only have 6 months to live. If I want to do whatever I want to do so much, why don't I start doing it right now? Get the question? If I want to do this thing so bad, why don't I? What is stopping me from doing it right now? That's a question you must ask yourself. Number 2, can I manage my time better how can I manage my time? We'll see where that question comes. Number 3, what actions will lead to my goal? What must I do to achieve the outcome I'm looking for? And of course, what order should these actions be in? 4 questions. If you answer those questions, you'll start your program of life management. Here's some advice I want to share from my experience. Some of this my wife would laugh at me, but it's all right. She would laugh. She'd say, Tony, you've got to be joking. But this is my advice. This is my advice. Number 1, planning is the key to getting control of your future. Got a plan. It allows you to make things happen instead of letting things happen to you. Does that make any sense? It allows you to make things happen rather than let things happen to you. Planning is the key. So you need to put a list together and prioritize what you're going to do in that list. Number 2, stop procrastinating. You know what they say about procrastination? It's the thief of time. If you have something that needs to be done, then do it sooner rather than later. Because what you don't do today is still going to be there tomorrow. So that's number 2. Stop procrastinating. Number 3, learn to use your most productive time. Learn to use your most productive time. In other words, you need to take time to work out in your daily cycle what's the time when you're most bright and most alert. That's the time you need to spend doing the important things. Does that make any sense? Don't do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when that's the time you want to go to sleep. That's not a good time. Find out when you're most bright and most alert. That's the time you want to do your most important things. Organize your day around your daily cycle. Number 4, avoid personal time wasting at work. What does that mean? Handle each piece of paper only once. Handle each piece of paper only once. If you can't deal with it immediately, then put it somewhere where you can deal with it as soon as you're finished, or throw it in the bin. Why? Why? Because if not, you will waste a lot of time going back and forth trying to find pieces of paper that you've mislaid. So handle it only once. Deal with it, or if you can't deal with it, put it somewhere where you can deal with it quickly, or if it's no good, throw it in the bin. Number 4, what number is that? 4. Number 4. Number 5, get rid of the TV, or at least control it rigidly. You are wasting time by gloating on the dogs. Wasting a lot of time. There are much better ways to relax than watching the TV set. Number 6, don't sit around watching a bad film or a play just because you paid for it. Because the money you've spent is already wasted. Don't throw a good time after it as well. Does that make any sense? You know, sometimes you say, well, I'm going to go through it because I paid for it. No, we have already wasted. Don't waste your time as well. Number 7, don't be a news addict. Don't be a news addict. Unless there are enemies advancing on your town, you don't need to hear the news more than once. Okay? Okay. Now, number 8. This is my time. No. That's the time I'm wasting time. It's time for me to finish. All right, let me go quickly. If you have to spend a lot of time waiting for somebody, carry something useful to do. Like a book or something that you can at least utilize your time well. Number 9. Spend some time working out every day how you can do things better or quicker. Does that make any sense? Spend a little time every day figuring out how you can do things better or quicker. Number 10, don't waste time regretting your failures. Nobody's perfect, but you can you can learn from your mistakes and then get in the habit of analyzing them. Number 11, don't do it for yourself. Don't do something for yourself unless you can earn less in the same time it takes to pay somebody else to do it for you. Did you get one? Don't do something for yourself unless you can earn less in the same time it will take you to pay somebody else to do it for you. In other words, you've got to be careful of costing your time. And if you're spending more money doing it than paying somebody for it, then pay them for it and make more money. Now, what is I'm trying to say? Learn about making money. You know one thing Jesus said many of us are struggling with? You know what Jesus said? Jesus said, make money your what? Come on. Make money your friend, Jesus says. And we struggle with that. That's what Jesus says. Make money your friend. It doesn't mean that, I'm not saying you must love money. The love of money is still the root of all evil. I do not believe that God's people should be poor, by the way. That's not biblical. I just want everybody to know that before you kick me out. It is not biblical. There is nowhere in the Bible that says God's people must be poor. It says you have to be careful with riches. Yes? You have to be careful with riches because riches can deceive you. It never says you must be poor. It says the poor you will have always with you so you can show them benevolence. It never says you must be poor. Beloved, I wish above all things that you would have prosperity is God's will. Alright, so learn about money, learn how to use. Get your car service regularly, that's the most, something that really is a waste of time. Okay. Finally, remember to pray. Is that good enough? I'm cutting short my sermon. Remember to pray. Because grace has brought you this far, and grace will take you home. Grace will take you home. So remember to pray. Depend on the Lord. Get Jesus in the boat. In conclusion, in 1969, when the astronauts of the Apollo spacecraft landed on the moon, Earth's nearest planet, Neil Armstrong jumped onto the surface of the derelict planet and uttered 10 words, which has changed the life of millions, countless millions, throughout the ages. He declared, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. This is my challenge and my charge to you, class of 2001. Like a relay race, the torch has been handed down from graduating class to graduating class. In 25 years ago, a torch was passed on to be my school. And I was charged by my alma mater. And with the rest of the graduates, he said, make this school proud of you. That's what was said to me. Make this school proud of you. I remember the words of my mother. She's in Trinidad, but she always said to me, son, make this world a better place in which to live. Today, I pass that torch over to you. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Amen.
3 minutes.